Hello, this is Dr. Salvatore Vinciguerra, and in this video I'm going to be teaching you about dots and the rules that are associated with the rhythmic values and adding them after quarter notes, half notes, and whole notes. Sometimes dots can be underneath notes. Sometimes they can be on the side of a note, as in this example. If the dot is underneath a note, then that is most probably indicating a staccato or some other part of an articulation that is necessary for playing a certain note in a certain style of music. When we have a dot after a note, that is indicating a certain rule, and this rule is that a dot after any note adds half the value of the note that it follows. So in the case of a dotted half note would then be equal to 3 beats following this rule. A half note receives 2 beats by itself without the dot, and then when you place the dot there, it adds half the value. So half the value of 2 is 1, 2 plus 1 is 3. Here is another example with the whole note. If you add the dot to the whole note, it is equivalent to 6 beats. Following the rule, a whole note gets 4 beats by itself without the dot. Adding half the value of 4, which is 2, it is equal to 6 beats. This is the dotted quarter note, and as you can see, if you follow the rule, it equals to 1.5 beats. This is how the dotted quarter note is used in context of 2/4 time. In 2/4 time, there are 2 beats in each measure. The top number tells us how many beats there are in each measure. The bottom number tells us what note gets the beat. So a 1/4, and the quarter note is going to get the beat here. So in this example, as we see, there's a dotted quarter note followed by an 1/8 note. This is a typical pattern of this type of note, as you need something to complete the beat. The dotted quarter note could also be followed by an 1/8 rest, and that may be the only way that it could be, that is the only way that you could complete this type of measure. In counting these notes, I have 1-2, and underneath that I have the 3/8 notes, representing the different halves of the beat needed to equal that particular note, followed by an 1/8 note receiving an N. This is an example of using dotted notes in 4/4 time. As you can see, that the dotted half note receives 3 beats, so I put 1-2-3. I have a quarter note receiving 1 beat. Then I have my dotted notes all lined up in the second measure. I have 1-2. I have a lonely 1/8 note placed after it to complete beat 2, and then in beat 3 I have 3-4. That's 1.5 beats. And I have to have something there to fill in the rest of beat 4. So either an 1/8 note or 1/8 rest. So I put N. In the last measure, I have a dotted half note again, like the first measure, 1-2-3, and I'm completing that with a quarter note, and it receives the 4th beat. One question that I get asked by my students is about notes, and are they equal to one another, even though their stems are down or up? And as you can see in this example, in the first measure, there is a quarter note with its stem up, and there's also a quarter note in the last measure with its stem down. Yes, their value of beats is equal to one another. And if this note was up, and maybe on a different space or line down here, then yes, it would still get 1 beat of sound. This is what this example would sound like in 4/4 time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 3, and 1, 2, 3. Here is an example of music using the rule with the dotted whole note in 6/4 time in bass clef. The key here is the different time signature, because this is one of the only ways that you could use the dotted whole note that we have here. And you could have 6/4 time, you could have 8/4 time, you could have 5/4 time. And remember that the value of the dotted whole note receives 6 beats, so it has to be able to fit within a measure of time with the proper time signature. So here I have my numbers written out: 1-2-3-4-5-6, very long duration of time. Then I have a dotted half note in the next measure, 1-2-3, a quarter note, 5-6. And you could get creative and do whatever you want to compose within the various measures. But remember, you have to follow the rules of fitting the proper notes in here, equaling the proper value of the time signature that you're composing in. This is what this example in 6/4 time would sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here is another example in 4/4 time. And you can see here that I am using rests to demonstrate as an example how rests would be incorporated within these time signatures with dotted notes. So in the first measure, I have a dotted half note. It gets 1-2-3, followed by a quarter rest, which receives 1 beat. In 4/4 time, it gets a 4 and an R. Next measure, 1-2, because the dotted quarter note receives 1.5 beats, followed by an N, which is an 8th note. Then there is a half rest, which receives 2 beats in 4/4 time, so I would put a 3-4, R-R. Last measure, a dotted half note, 1-2-3, and followed by a quarter note to complete the measure, and it gets a 4. This is what this example in 4/4 time would sound like. 1, 2, ready, play. 1, 2, 3, rest. 1, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. This is Dr. Salvatore Vinciguerra. Thank you for watching this video on adding dots to quarter notes, half notes, and whole notes. Please watch out for more videos in this series of basic music notation and learning how to read and write music. If you liked this video, please like it, subscribe to this channel, and have a great day. Thank you.